Okay, well, I came across this the other day, and this is from 2009. It's a Project Camelot video. We can tell it's a Project Camelot video because it has something like 10 commercial ad breaks, all these little yellow blocks. All along the bottom here, all these ad breaks. Look at this, squeak another two in at the end there. Not that they're in it for the money, of course. This is Project Camelot interviews Joseph Farrell. This is the guy that I hadn't heard of until quite recently and sort of dismissed as being not worth listening to. This reinforces my belief that Joseph Farrell really isn't worth listening to, but he's obviously been spruiking all this bloody rubbish for a very long time. This guy here is Bill Ryan, who used to be involved with Project Camelot. I don't think he is anymore. My initial impression of Bill Ryan is, well, it's pretty uncouth, really. You know, he's wearing a hat inside. You know, could it be that his roof leaks? Could it be that he's as bald as a billiard ball and he thinks that the hat makes him look 10 years younger? Could it be both? Well, Joseph Farrell was obviously very impressed by Bill's appearance because I think in subsequent videos I've seen Joseph Farrell wearing a hat indoors. So maybe these people need to run all these ads and all these yellow boxes here. These are all ad breaks, so that they can get their roofs repaired or get some hair plugs or buy some new hats, possibly. Anyway, just to give you an example of how ridiculous Joseph Farrell's ramblings are, I'll just play you this little bit from Project Camelot from 2009.
The Nazis and something called a bell. So what's the plot line here? Why should anyone care about this extraordinary story?
All right, very simple. It's my belief, just to give you kind of a very short Cliff Notes answer, it's my belief, number one, that the Nazi atom bomb project was successful. Now, what I'm going to do is simply ask your viewers to accept that as kind of a given for the sake of argument, so that I can kind of set the context, okay?
Yeah. Okay, so he said for his story to be even slightly believable, you have to accept as fact that the Nazis during the Second World War developed the atomic bomb. Their atomic bomb program was successful. Now, have you ever heard anything quite so ridiculous? Now, remember, everything he's going to say from this point is anchored to this belief. So straight away that tells you can put a line through it. This is about the Nazi bell. I made a video some time ago. I called it the Nazi bell end because it's rubbish. Now, how do we know that the Nazi atomic bomb program wasn't successful? Well, I'm not speaking German. It's a pretty good indication. There are people around that don't have blue eyes and blonde hair, you know. If the Nazis' atomic bomb program was successful, they would have used their atomic bomb. This is rubbish, absolute nonsense. And he's going to go on to tell us about this, the super duper properties of this Nazi bell project, which, if it existed at all, was probably something to do with their atomic bomb program. Certainly nothing to do with interstellar travel, anti-gravity, interdimensional travel. It's all absolute bloody rubbish. Now, he also mentions this Igor Witalski, is it, that wrote a book about this Nazi bell. And I'll include a couple of clips of Mr. Witalski's beliefs, or maybe both. I think he shows this big structure. And he says, oh, yes, well, this is where the anti-gravity craft would have been parked on top of this, and you can see where the big electrical cables went through these conduits. And it's actually a water tower support structure, and the conduits were actually for water pipes. I'll see if I can find some clips to include in this video. Okay, let's move on to the next clip. It's really not worth listening to this guy. He's you're wasting your time. Okay, I'll leave a link to this video below as well. This is from the Miles Johnston Basis channel, which is always good for a laugh. Here's Igor Witkowski, and he's talking about the Nazi scientist that was in charge of the Nazi Bell project. He was also in charge of the Nazi atomic bomb project. How surprising. A physicist, and apparently he found himself in the hands of British intelligence at the end of the war. And I'm sure they gave him a nice cup of tea and maybe some jam and cream scones. A nice quiet chat with the professor. Anyway, let's just have a listen now. Remember what Farrell was saying about let's take it that the German atomic bomb program was a success. Now let's see what Mr. Witkowski has to say about it.
9, I guess, German physicists that were interned, or how to say that, kept anyway on a property in the United Kingdom after the war, named Farm Hall, and the conversations between them were recorded and translated and so on by British intelligence. And for example, one of the strange elements that have surfaced from this episode was that he was crying after Americans dropped a nuclear bomb on Japan. As it has later turned out, his co-worker has testified that it wasn't that he was crying because of the death of I don't know 50 or 100,000 people. But he was crying because it wasn't Germans who dropped the bomb.
Yeah. Okay. So after the war, the German scientists were captured by the British, and they went to England to be interrogated. We'll have a nice quiet chat. And one of the guy's co-workers said the professor was crying when the Americans dropped the atomic bomb on the Japanese. And it wasn't because of all those people that got vaporized. It was because the Germans didn't get to drop any atomic bombs. They didn't get to drop the first atomic bomb. That's why he was crying. You got to feel sorry for him, haven't you? I mean, poor Nazi physicist, not being able to vaporize all those people in London. Yeah, it sort of gets you right here. You know, it gets you, and you got to feel for him. And to be honest, I wish I'd been there at the time, so I could console him personally. But I'm sure he got plenty of consolation from British intelligence. So you got Joseph Farrell saying, I want you to believe that the Nazi atomic bomb program was successful. And then you've got Igor Witkowski telling us that, after the war, one of the fellows that worked with this professor said that he was crying when he heard that the Germans had dropped the atomic bomb on the Americans had dropped the atomic bomb on the Japanese because the Americans beat the Germans to the atomic bomb. So the German atomic bomb program was obviously unsuccessful. I think the fact that this guy that was in charge of the Bell project was also in charge of the German atomic bomb project tells us that, as I said earlier, if it existed at all, this Bell thing, it would have been something to do with the Nazi atomic bomb program, trying to get the atomic bomb to work. It'd be nothing whatsoever to do with interstellar travel, anti-gravity, interdimensional travel. This is just all fanciful nonsense. The other thing to consider here, of course, is that if this professor spent some time in the hands of British intelligence after the war, being debriefed, then the British are going to know everything there is to know and more about the Nazi Bell. So if there were anything really interesting to it, the Brits would have gone there. Remember the Poles and the Brits, they were all on the same side during the Second World War. Immediately after the war, they were still very friendly. The Brits would have said to the Poles, can we come over and dig this thing up? We'll let you in on what we find, of course. The Poles, of course, would have said, "Yeah, help yourself," and you know, they would have gone to the Wenceslas mine and dug it up and recovered it. So, you know, I'd put a line. I've said it before, but yeah, put a line through the Nazi bell. You know, put a line through, you know, any thoughts you may have about the Germans being successful with their atomic bomb project. It's just absolute bloody nonsense. As is most of the stuff you see on these sort of channels. You know, 99.9% of it is, or 99.99% of it is drivel. Okay, let's go to the next clip. Okay, here's Mr. Witkowski again on the Miles Johnson Bases channel, and he's going to tell us that there are some not so friendly aliens out there.
Beings that are not so friendly to us, but I'm speaking. I'm aware of that. I have been attacked myself.
Okay, yes. So he's aware there are some unfriendly aliens out there. He's been attacked himself. Now, what does that tell you about Mr. Witkowski? I'm surprised, actually. Oh, well, this is the Miles Johnson channel, but of course, any other channel, there'd be a shepherd's crook that would sort of come across here, hook around his neck, and pull him off the stage. Thank you very much, Igor. Okay, let's have a look at the next clip. It's another very quick clip before I actually show you what the he hasn't mentioned the fly trap here, and as I said, I haven't got time to find the blooming thing, but he mentions this fly trap which is above the bell, and I'll show you a picture of the fly trap, and I'll show you the remains of the fly trap on Google Earth. Okay, so here we get to the fanciful theories regarding the Nazi bell.
Nevertheless, he has created a mathematical description, and on the grounds of this, Professor Gerlach came to the conclusion that it is a key to gravity, to controlling gravity. He has established a collaboration with other people. One of them was equally unknown after the war, brilliant German physicist specializing in gravitation, whose name was Pascual Jordan. You would pronounce it Pascual Jordan. And later, shortly after the war, Jordan has published a theory of a very...
Yeah, so he's saying that the bell could be used to control gravity. This Nazi bell end. But you know, these guys fell into the hands of British intelligence. They're going to know all about it, and you know, I don't think the British have any anti-gravity devices. I haven't seen any British anti-gravity devices. You know, when did the war finish? How many years ago? Yeah, this is just it's just fanciful nonsense. It's just a way of this guy's written lots of books, of course, and this is just another way of making money out of a lot of science fiction twaddle, because people lap this stuff up. Maybe I should go into this business myself. You know, change my name and start generating all these fanciful science fiction tales. Might make a few quid. Okay, I'll show you a little bit about Mr. Witkowski's fly trap. Remember, the fly trap is the structure that's supposed to sit immediately above the bell. The bell's buried deep in the Wenceslas mine below the fly trap. Okay, so I can't find a clip of Mr. Witkowski talking about the fly trap structure in Poland. He tells us I can't find it, but there's a documentary where he's saying now this is structure is immediately above where the bell would have been in Poland, and I think this is very, very close to the ruins of a power station. And I think it's the sort of thing that you'd have at a power station. You'd have a cooling tower, maybe cooling the water, And this is a big water tower, water tank support structure. It's got nothing whatsoever to do with anti-gravity spacecraft. And he said the big conduits going to it are, for carrying huge cables to carry all the electric power down to the bell, are in fact the conduits for the water pipes. Anyway, I'll just show you a little bit of this. It's not a very long video. This is from the I'll leave a link to this video below. There's no commentary on it, unfortunately. He's just playing some music, but it's this guy's channel here, DSVCZ, and this is a video that he took back in 2012. Anyway, that's what the fly trap looks like. So when you hear Mr. Witkowski talking about the fly trap, and I've actually seen a graphic of a flying saucer sitting on top of that or going up and down inside it. I wish I could find that, but I don't have a great deal of time to spend on this today, but you get the picture. You might be able to do some Googling and find it yourself, but it's ridiculous. I'd recommend you don't waste your time. Okay, so this is only a 2-minute video. Oh, this is just another view that he's just panning his camera around and showing us the structure. Okay, so this is the fly trap, big water tower support structure. Nothing whatsoever to do with anti-gravity spacecraft. There's one of the conduits, of course, that carried the pipes. I think we're going to get a view of the power station in a minute, and it'll probably be easier for me to keep talking rather than try and find it on this video. These are the ruins of this the power station close to the Wenceslas mine, which supposedly houses the bell. It's full of water, apparently. And in Poland, looks like it might have had a moat around it at some point. Again, you've got this looks to me very much like it would be for channeling water, although it's a there we go, it's a World War II thing, so that might have been for people to jump into. But there is the remains of the power station, and well, I'll show you on Google Earth in a minute, but the power station is very, very close to that framework. So okay, well, we'll go from that, so you just get a sort of reasonable idea of what this looks like on the ground, and I'll just go to the next clip, which is the same site on Google Earth. Right, so here is the same site on Google Earth, and we can see our fly trap here. There's the remains of the power station. I think it's very obviously a water tower, cooling tower for the power station. This is just, and all this anti-gravity stuff is just bloody nonsense, as you might expect. Now, the other thing too is people have said, oh yeah, well, why is it up here? Why is it here? Why isn't it sort of down here or down there? Well, not on this, it doesn't show you on here, of course, but during the Second World War, there were all railway lines through here, all railway lines. And it probably would have meant disrupting all the railway lines to put the thing anywhere else. The Second World War, all the trains are pulled by steam locomotives, of course. So, and I have seen a map of this place, and there's a railway line that comes along here quite close to that, down along there. And there are just railway lines all over the place here, so it's a sort of marshalling yard, and it's probably somewhere where they use the water, the steam goes back out from the power station back up into here, condenses back into water. It's stored in a water tank, which goes back for cooling, and I suspect it was also used for filling up the steam locomotives with water, because remember, steam locomotives have quite an appetite for water, and if you're shifting all your stuff around, you need a guaranteed supply of water to keep the locomotives topped up. So I think that's the down-to-earth explanation for what that is all about. And another reason they might put it there, of course, is that this point here, that point there, if we look at the elevation, you look at the elevation down there, elevation 501 metres. Oops. 501 metres, and the elevation of the power plant 497 metres. There we go. So we've got, we've got 4 metre drop between there and there. This I think is 17. The structure I think is 17 metres high. So you've got 21 metre height difference between the bottom of the water tank and the ground level of the power station. So you can gravity feed your water there with no problems. You wouldn't need pumps. Okay, so I think that tells us all we really need to know about the fly trap above the Nazi Bell. Certainly nothing whatsoever to do with anti-gravity spacecraft. Okay, well, on to the next clip. And here we can see, Witkowski's fly trap supporting his anti-gravity craft. And we can compare this structure here to this structure here that's supporting a water tower. And I think I don't think there's very much doubt there that that's what that is. It's a support structure for a water tower for a power station. So it's more fanciful rubbish from the I don't know, the alternative sanity world, I suppose. I think there's also some controversy about actually, no, I don't think there is. I was just about to say I think there might be some controversy about when this was actually built, whether it was actually built after the war. But I think on the map that I saw, it was a wartime map, and it had this on it with the railway lines around it and all that sort of stuff. And you got the power station over here somewhere, the railway lines between it and the power station. Yeah, it's anyway. So much for the Nazi Bell. Nazi Bell BS. Okay, well there might be a clip or two to follow. Just a couple of things I got in mind to tack on the end. If they're not there, thanks for watching. I might catch you again. Just returning to Project Camelot. To finish off, here's Kerry Cassidy, and she's telling us what Project Camelot is really all about. Not that we need telling, of course, because again, remember all the little blocks, all the little yellow blocks here, advertising, ad breaks. Now this is from this year, and remember when we started this video, same amount of blocks. I think there was 10 blocks along the bottom there from 2009. So it's all about making money, and Kerry tells us as much.
Try to get the truth out. So they do these insidious things. And
I've just started this a few seconds earlier. Bear with me here.
And luckily, they have now green-lighted the Simon Parkes interview that I did today.
Oh, yeah, she was saying about the Simon Parkes. She did an interview with Simon Parkes and they demonetised it, so she said she couldn't show it. And now they've green-lighted it, so she can show it. And what she meant was that she could show it, but without any ads. She couldn't make any money out of it. And now they've green-lighted it, and she can put the ad breaks in. Now she'll show it. So it's got nothing whatsoever to do with getting the truth out there. This is a money-making business, Project Camelot, which is why you see so much science fiction rubbish on this channel. And Kerry is about to tell us exactly what it's all about.
But this is how I actually pay my rent nowadays, and that's the only way I would be surviving in order to do what I'm doing now, because otherwise it's simply hopeless.
Yeah, there you go. So she makes videos to put on Project Camelot so she can pay her rent. It's the money she gets so she can survive, which is why we see so much science fiction twaddle on the Project Camelot YouTube channel. And I did see another clip of Kerry that I thought was quite amusing the other day, which sort of suggests quite strongly how much credibility we should give Kerry Cassidy and anyone you might see on her channel. I'll just see if I can find that clip. Here's Kerry Cassidy again, and this will give you some idea of how much credibility you should give to Kerry Cassidy and anything you might see on Project Camelot.
A journalist, investigative reporter, and I have actually, been contacted, been abducted, by various ET races, in contact with them as well, and that was when I was a child.
So now Kerry Cassidy's jumped on the bandwagon. She's been abducted and contacted by many ET races when she was a child. Yes, okay. Next caller, please. Hey, Kerry. So there we are. That's just another quick look around at what I found on YouTube with regard to conspiracy stuff. The bit that led to the Kerry Cassidy stuff at the end, of course, was Project Camelot. Because the video started with Bill Ryan when he was involved with Project Camelot, talking to Jeff Farrell, one of those, and moved over to the sort of Nazi atomic bomb and then the Nazi bell. And I thought I'd just end with that Project Camelot thing to give you some idea how much credibility you should be giving to Project Camelot. Kerry Cassidy admitting that it's all about paying her rent, it's all about money. She won't show the videos if she can't monetize them. And now she's telling us that she was abducted by many races of aliens, not just, one abduction, one flying saucer. Oh, no. Many races of aliens have abducted her when she was a child, and and they're in contact with her. So yes, lots of little yellow blocks. All these yellow blocks. Huh, all these ad breaks. Look at them, ad breaks. It's all about money. Put a line through Kerry Cassidy, Project Camelot, the Nazi Bell, Igor Witowski, and Joe Farrell, is it? Or Jeff Farrell's one of those. The guy that tells us that aliens came to our solar system to fight a cosmic war, and he also tells us that the Nazi atomic bomb program was successful. And of course, just a quick look out the window tells us all that. So that's very true. I mean, I don't. We can all see those, those 20-metre long hanging red banners with swastikas on. We can hear those jackboots, perfectly synchronised, going up and down the street. And people that don't have blue eyes and blonde hair being dragged away and incinerated. Where do these people? I don't know. I was going to say. Where do these people come from? I don't know. I really don't know. Are they escapees from some sort of mental health institution, possibly? Anyway, I'll end this video here. So as always, if you've stuck with the video all the way through to this point, congratulations, extremely well done. I'm going to have to start giving prizes for people that manage to do that, and perhaps I'll catch you again.